Hi, this is Mr. Ng, and this is the quiz corrections for January 23rd, 2015 for Algebra 2A. You're looking at this graph here to the right. There's an idea here that there is no circle here. Remember, it is a solution at this point, and the default is a closed circle. It's a closed circle, not an open circle. So state the domain means I go from left to right. I start here. So my x values are greater than 0. The reason why they're greater than 0, remember that arrowhead tells us go to the right. Interval notation means I'm starting at 0 here at this point. Bracket because it's equals to, and I go towards positive infinity because the last thing I touch is that arrow. For the range, that's from the bottom to the top. Notice how my values stop at 0. So you can write y for the range, and then you have 0 because that's the last thing it touches here, right? So your values are y is less than or equal to 0. Now in interval notation, remember you're still going from bottom to top. So the first thing you touch is that arrow, which is negative infinity essentially, and you go towards 0. Bracket. Those were 2 points apiece, for a total of 8 points for that section. Question number 2 says answer the following. Is this linear? Now it's not asking if it's a function, therefore you're not talking about passes the vertical line test. Is it linear? If not, state the reason. I wrote that it is not linear because the x has an exponent. And it has an exponent of 2 and not 1. This essentially is a quadratic function. I gave you 2 points for the no and 2 points for a correct reason for that. Number 3, it asks you to simplify. Again, students are having confusion with the original math operation. So here it says you're subtracting 2, but really it's multiplying by this expression. So I'm going to use order of operations. I get 3 minus 7 gives me negative 4. So I'm doing operations inside the parentheses there. That would have given you 2 points. Negative 4 squared is 16. Now here, a lot of students are trying to do negative 7 minus 2. Remember, that would be subtraction, and in order of operations is multiplication first. So it's negative 2 times 16, which is negative 32. Students who know that this is positive, you don't write plus, and don't get confused. That's negative 2 plus 16. The original math operation is multiplication there. You get negative 39. Now, some students are trying to use distributing the exponent. Distributing the exponent here only works. Notice how when it's multiplication. In the original problem, it's not, it's subtraction. So the correct answer is 16. And here's the reason why that distributing the exponents where students where that's coming from is the power rule of exponents, which essentially means you can distribute this 2 here to each of its exponents. This will give you 3 squared times 7 squared. 9 times 49 gives you 441. Or you can just do 3 times 7, which is 21, and 21 squared gives you 441. Again, this part here only applies to if the math operation was multiplication, and in our quiz it was subtraction. Part B here, this one says 1 minus 12 minus the absolute value of negative 11 minus the opposite of the absolute value of negative 13. So the absolute value of negative 13 is 13, and I noted that by my parentheses. Absolute value of negative 11 is just 11. Now here you have an opposite sign and a subtraction sign, so opposite of negative is plus. Here the opposite of our positive 11 is a negative 11, and you can just combine like terms or left to right, and you'll get negative 9. So if you evaluated the absolute value correctly, I gave you guys 2 points. For 3C, you're asked to evaluate. So the first thing you need to do is do your substitutions. Here are your substitutions. If you get this far, I give you 2 points. I'm going to do the what's in parentheses first. It gives me 14. Negative 3 times 14 gives me negative 42. And I still have this half. Try to leave that half as a fraction. I'm going to write it sideways. Negative 42 divided by 1/2. So this is negative 42 divided by half. Remember, this turns into multiplication. And then you're taking the reciprocal of the second expression. Negative 42 times 2 gives me negative 84. If you got this far to negative 42 divided by half, means you got the substitution plus you simplified some of it, I give you 3 points. For question number 4, it tells us to graph and make sure the intercepts and shade if needed. Well, shading is only if there's inequalities, which we don't have yet, and we will label on the graph. So I have y equals 2x minus 3. Up to this point, students only know how to graph by intercepts. If you know how to graph by slope-intercept form and did it correctly, which is fine, make x equals 0. This gives me y equals negative 3. If I make y equals 0, add 3 to both sides, then divide by 2. X is 3/2. Notice I've labeled it there. There's my y-intercept and my x-intercept. How I was grading this problem was 2 points for a correct graph, positive slope, goes to these 2 points, and your x and y-intercepts are both labeled. For 4b, y equals negative 1/3 x. I decided to make this question extra credit, so this is 4 points extra credit. The reason why is because you didn't have a y-intercept here. So when you substitute in 0 for x, you'll get y equals 0. And if you substitute y equals 0, and you solve for x, you're multiplying both sides by the reciprocal. Anything times 0 is 0. So all you had was just graphing here at the origin, and maybe you didn't understand how to do slope. Here are my annotations for that problem. Just to say you try to aim for a positive slope, I took a -1 off the point from the problem, so me graphed it with 0, 0, got 3 points. 1 point each for the x and y intercept. -1 if you graphed it correctly but not labeled, so you're not putting the 0, 0 there. And I give you 2 points total if you just had the origin 0, 0 as your x and y intercept. 4c, same thing. You're graphing by intercepts, making x equals 0. You would have gone y equals 2. And if you make y equals 0, you'll get x to be negative 5. And if you graph that, here's negative 5 as your x-intercept, and y equals 2 is your y-intercept. Question number 5a, you're asked to solve. The common mistake for students here is if you're going to multiply by 2, well, you would have to multiply by 2 of the whole expression here. Do you see how I label that in brackets? So if you're going to do that in the very beginning, don't forget to distribute that 2 to the negative 5 as well. The fastest way of doing the problem is just adding 5 to both sides. I get 1/2 parentheses 3x minus 5 equals 6. Now to get rid of the fraction, I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. I get 3x minus 5 equals 12, add 5, divide by 3. Now it's okay if you decided to distribute here. Maybe you got 3/2 x minus 5 over 2. Then you add 5. You would have gotten the same thing. But we don't have to deal with decimals or more fractions. Question 5b. Notice I have in the denominator 2x plus 5. So you can just put parentheses around that. Think of it as a fraction. I want to get rid of this one here. I'll multiply both sides by 2x plus 5. When you do that, these will cancel. And you're only left with the 5x minus 1. And here I have 3 times the quantity 2x plus 5. Don't forget to distribute, and then you can solve. Another way of solving this problem here is essentially doing 5x minus 1 over 2x plus 5 equals 3. And you just make 3 a fraction, and then you can just cross multiply here. And you have gotten the same answer. For 5C, this problem you're just asked to solve. So again, the common mistake here is a lot of students are trying to do 6 minus 2. Order of operations tells us that subtraction and addition are last. So we have to do what's in the parentheses, or exponents, and then I'm going to do multiplication and division from left to right. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're isolating the absolute value signs. Get everything away in front of the absolute value signs. So I'm going to subtract 6 first here. And then divide by -2. I want to take back what I said. When you're solving here, you should do the reverse of order operation. So you should have done addition and subtraction first. Remember, look at the relationships. It's not 6 minus 2. It's 6 and then minus and -2 times this expression. So subtract 6 first, divided by -2. Remember, when you divide by negative, make sure to flip the inequality sign. If you got absolute value of x minus 4 is less than 5, then I would have given you 2 points. Last week we learned the idea that if you this couple here is looking at someone else and your interest is very little in someone else, then you stay together. Staying together means you have the word and. So once your absolute value signs are isolated, this is where you do the absolute value sign. And this is the only time that you're taking away the absolute value sign, which essentially means you make one of these expressions positive and you make one of the expressions negative. With a positive in the parentheses there, you don't have to do anything. You can essentially just drop the positive sign in the parentheses. Add 4, and you get this. Here, to get rid of the negative sign, remember it's negative one of these. Don't forget to distribute, or to take care of it, I'm going to divide by -1. I'm dividing here by negative, so don't forget to flip the inequality sign. Add 4, and you get this. You got x is less than 9 and x is greater than -1. I give you 3 points. To make this a compound inequality, you make the x variable here, greater number to the right. Notice how it says less than, smaller number to the left. Notice how it says x is greater than -1, and you read it from right to left. X is greater than -1. For this problem here, notice that you have a fraction. So I want to eliminate the fraction. On your quiz, I had whited this out because I had the question mark and had a 5 above here. It just meant it equals 5. So to eliminate the fraction from both sides, I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. The reason why I'm multiplying by 6 is that is the lowest common multiple between 3 and 6. So what that does is here I'm going to distribute the 6 to each of these expressions. Notice I've done that here. Here I'm just cross-canceling. I'll get 4x. These will cross-cancel. And notice I have no fraction. Remember, you're multiplying by 6 on both sides, so that will equal 30. Combine like terms and divide, you'll get x equals 6. For 5e, solving the equation absolute value of 3 minus 2x equals -8. Automatically I gave you 4 points if you wrote no solution. Notice how the absolute value signs here, they are isolated. There's nothing in front, and then there's nothing behind it between the equal sign, so there you can split those. So I actually showed the splitting. And when you do that, you actually get x equals 11 halves and x equals -5 halves. Now, I decided to give you 2 points here. Okay, or if you wrote the word undefined as your answer, I decided to give you 2 points. The reason why 11 halves and -5 halves do not work is if you substitute it back into the original problem, they're actually false. They don't work. That's why it's a no solution. Here's a problem, 5f. If the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle is P equals 2L plus 2W, then W can be expressed as, you can also read this as then W can be written as, or solve W. Notice how I circled W here, which means I want to get it by itself. I subtracted 2L, so I get P minus 2L equals 2W. To get W by itself, I divide the whole right side by 2 and the whole left side by 2. this becomes p over 2. And then this will also become negative 2l divided by 2, which means you cross-cancel your 2's here, and you're just left with the l. My answer is p over 2 minus l equals w. Now, I decided to give you 2 points if you subtracted 2l from both sides, or if you solve for l correctly. Maybe you thought you were supposed to solve for l, meaning getting l by itself. I give you 2 points. On to the multiple choice. You're given a function. What is the value of f of negative 10? Which means that you're substituting your x value for negative 10. Negative 10 to your exponents. Evaluate. Don't forget to simplify. Number 7 is asking you the same thing. I have f of negative 1, so I substitute in negative 1. Don't forget, remember, you're putting that negative 1 in the parentheses as a substitution. Negative 1 to the third power gives you negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. Absolute value of negative 4 is 4. F of negative 1 is 4. When you see a problem like this where you're asked to do error analysis, just take your original problem, 3 times quantity x plus 4 minus 2 equals 16, and actually just do the problem, which I did here. Add 2 to both sides first. I noticed that matches up. Then you can distribute here. 3x plus 12 equals 18. And I noticed that Debbie did not distribute. She only distributed to the first term, not to the second term. So the answer is the mistake is between lines 2 and 3, and she forgot to distribute. Number 9, if x equals 4 and y equals negative 2, the value of 1/2 xy squared is. Make sure you do the substitutions. Notice how I decided to make this fraction here, and the 1/2 I have to the outside. This is just to show you that this is all in the numerator, and that's the denominator. So I'll get negative 2 squared, which is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 divided 2 is 8. I circled the wrong answer. The answer is 8. Number 10. If 3ax plus b equals c, then x equals. This essentially means get x by itself. Notice how I've highlighted that x there. Subtract b, remember opposite of order of operations. Then I divided by the 3a, and this is my answer. Number 11, when you're asked to compare two quantities, compare the quantity in column A with the quantity in column B. So this is my given information. They give me two functions, f of x and g of x. Column A is focusing on just the f function, f of negative 5. So substitute in negative 5 there. Here's my work for column A, and I get f of negative 5 equals 50. G of x, substitute in 4, and I get 48. Therefore, if I compare my two columns, column A and column B, column A is larger. The answer is A. Number 12, given the relation R is equal to all these ordered pairs, but I notice that there is an A value there. What replacement for A makes this relation a function? So to make it a function essentially means it has to be one x value to one y value, which means the x values can't repeat. So notice if I pick one of either choice 1, 2, or 3, it'll make my x values repeat. And if you graph it, you'll realize it'll fail the vertical line test. Therefore, my answer is 4. Question number 13, skip, and go on to number 14. Notice for number 14, the inequality negative 3 less than x less than 7 is a solution of. And what I decided to do is actually just do the problem. I actually did each of these. I want to make sure it matches that one. So when I graphed, or when I solve for absolute value of x minus 2 less than 5, notice it's isolated. Now I can split them, one positive, one negative. Divide by the negative. Don't forget to flip your inequality sign. And I get negative 3 is less than x less than 7. Therefore, my choice is number 2. Number 15, which of this represents not a function, which means it fails the vertical line test, and you can just go through all those and notice how here at choice 4 it goes through more than one point. And number 16, again, I'm solving the problem. The absolute value signs are isolated. I'm going to split it up. One is positive and one is negative. Just fill in the problem there, exactly the same. Drop my parentheses, added 7, I get x is less than or equal to 2. Divided by -1, don't forget to flip the inequality sign, you get this. And remember, I have the word and here. The reason why it's and is because it says less than or equal to. Make it a compound inequality, and this compound inequality is graphed by 1. 1 is this one. And there's solutions for the quiz.